Welcome, everyone, to the wrap up of our 9-episode series on the role of effective communication in the workplace. We've had the privilege of engaging with professionals from various industries, delving into the complexities and the necessities of effective communication. Today, my colleagues and I are excited to revisit some of the key takeaways and insights that emerged throughout this video chat series.
Across the 9 episodes that we've had thus far, we've explored the trends that shape effective communication, and there were definitely some commonalities across the interviews that continue to come up.
So let's dive into our 3 favorite takeaways from the series. Number 1, the variety of modes. So we learned that using a variety of modes ensures a more comprehensive, inclusive approach. Verbal, nonverbal, in-person, written, all play unique roles in conveying messages effectively. In episode 4, we spoke with Jan from the airline industry. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
Safety driven. We also communicate with obviously air traffic control, and that poses some big challenges sometimes because most of the air traffic control communication between pilots and controllers is a two-way radio, which has its limitations. There's you can only go so far. So as you fly across the country, you keep switching over to different controllers. And there could be 20 different airplanes on one frequency, and they're all trying. Sometimes you got 2-3 people trying to talk on the same time. We call it stepped on. You know, you were stepped on. Say it again. You were stepped on. And it happens frequently. And there's static, there's dialects, or there's accents with the different carriers and different pilots. So that's a big deal. What we started doing recently, the industry has gone more towards an electronic, basically like a text message that we get on one of our computers that air traffic control can uplink a message like, go direct to this point or descend to this altitude or change to this frequency, and we can respond just through a text. And it makes things so much simpler because now I have a written response of everything. There's no disambiguity. Did I hear that frequency right? Did I hear that altitude correctly? We also obviously talk with our cabin crew. Briefing the flight attendants before each flight is a big important part of our day.
Now let's talk about the second takeaway that we thought we wanted to highlight is the nonstop nature of communication. So the realization that communication is nonstop was very evident throughout all of our episodes. It's a continuous dialogue with patients seeking advice, passengers requiring assistance, students asking questions, parents expressing concerns, and clients or customers seeking information. Now, while all of these examples were more customer or client facing, a lot of the dialogue that we had during these episodes also talked about the nonstop nature of communication that's necessary on the back end amongst employees, amongst colleagues for effective operations of any business or organization. Let's take a look at Darren, who spoke about this during our chat with restaurant owners and food service industry owners.
That's extremely essential, especially when you're in the management level. Communication is everything. And the funny thing about it is in hospitality, I feel like no matter what role, you could come in as the dishwasher. Every single person, there has to be effective communication just because there's always going to be something that goes wrong. Anybody in hospitality will tell you that, there's always going to be a moment, so you want to kind of be prepared. You want to have people, you want to communicate properly when something isn't, or when you see red flags, because sometimes they may be an indicator. You may see the smoke on your shift and it may not affect the restaurant until a couple shifts later. So you want to communicate on what's going on. So I think the biggest tool for management in hospitality, emails or having something written down. You want something concrete. The worst thing you could do as a leader, I think, in my field, is leave the knowledge right here. And I see a lot of great, talented people in my industry that do that. That's a flaw of theirs. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, we talked about it last week in the meeting. I said, but you didn't communicate it with the team. The purpose of, effective leader is communication.
And perhaps the most profound insight was the reminder that effective communication is a two-way street. So it's not just about articulating thoughts like we saw in the last clip, but also about actively listening and understanding the perspectives of others. So in episode 7, we spoke with Chris in our episode with athletic coaches, and let's take a look at what he had to say about this.
Well, communications is really important to, and it's a two-way street. I think it's important that, what I need to tell the kids to, what time practice is, where we're practicing. High school, there's always lots of adjustments for practice time starting and field use. And sometimes we start earlier, sometimes we start later. Sometimes we have a meeting at lunch and it's 11 o'clock and I need to get kids to know to be at my room at the start of lunch, which is only an hour and a half away. So there's a lot of constant communication from me to the kids, but then also I need to definitely be listening to what the kids are saying when they have things coming up. If there's a homecoming activity or tomorrow is like a PSAT test. So sometimes we have to adjust things based on what the kids have planned. And so that communication is really an important two-way street for me.
Now, of course, as we learned about effective communication, we also uncovered some of the most common pitfalls that our panelists had discovered throughout various industries. The first one is assuming everyone knows. So one major mistake is assuming that everyone is on the same page when it comes to communicating information and exchanging messages. Clarity and context are essential to avoid misunderstanding, regardless of whatever operation or industry you're talking about. In episode 6, we spoke with Jacob from the healthcare industry. Let's take a look.
So I talked about how you have to practice these concepts. You have to practice communication. So we just had a situation where we had a new team member, a new surgeon come into the group. And I'm not exactly sure what verbiage that they would use at her facility to initiate surgery. So it was an emergency. We had an emergency cesarean section. I can't remember exactly the reason, but we were moving very quickly. There was no time to do it the way we normally do, which would be a spinal. So we were going to put her to sleep. We got her all ready, got the monitors on. I'm communicating with my team. And I specifically tell the surgeons and the team, let me know when you have the scalpel in hand. I will tell you when to make incision. Do not begin until I tell you to make incision. And the part of that is when we practice, the key word is make incision. And that's how you know it's okay. It's very specific. It's a specific action that very, for the moment, it's not start, it's not begin, it's definitely not go. When you use these ambiguous words, and other people there's many conversations occurring right at the point where we're about to begin because the neonatal team is getting their equipment ready. There's the nurses getting the instruments with the surgical technicians ready. So if you use things like go, okay, it's going to misinterpret the right moment. And so we're getting ready to put the patient to sleep. And I just said that. I said, do not make incision until I tell you. And I grabbed my tools and my partner was pushing medicine. And he said, I'm going to start the propofol. The surgeon must have heard the word go. That's all we could. And I looked at the patient and she said, ow. And yes, my eyes lit up and I told my partner, rapid, we'll go rapid.
Wow. Now, another common pitfall that our guest shared was related to over or under communicating. So we heard about stories that demonstrated the delicate balance between providing enough information and also not overwhelming or underwhelming the audience. So in episode 3, we spoke with Harmeet, who's a small business owner. So let's see what he had to say about that.
Industry too. I would say sometimes under communication and over communication is a big issue. We also sometimes go with an approach that one size fit all kind of a communication, where we do not adapt to who we are putting across the message to. So we have our customers, which are homeowners. We have customers, they're trade professionals, designers, remodelers, contractors, builders, architects. We have various sets of customers. Some are direct, some are indirect customers. Some are customers who refer their customers to us. So it's a very sensitive kind of a thing. So customers who are trade professionals know more. So there's no point giving them over communicating with them.
Right.
Then there are customers who are homeowners. If you educate them and give them the right amount of information that's needed about the product, that goes a long way. I mean, they are educated when they receive the final product as a
when looking at trends, the third area of fail is forgetting to connect, that we found was forgetting to connect. The importance of forging connections was emphasized. So effective communication goes beyond just the transfer of information. It's about building meaningful relationships. In episode 5, we spoke with Brenna from the education industry.
A challenge that educators sometimes face is not front-loading enough positive comments or positive feedback for students and for their families. When a student comes in the morning and we're trying to be clear and concise, it's easy for the first words they hear from you to be, "Don't forget to make your lunch choice," or "Your backpack fell off its hook." But you never want that to be the first thing that a student hears from you in the morning. You want it to be, "Good morning, I'm so glad you're here. How was your evening? Do you have soccer practice after school today?" Anything, like Jill said, to build that connectivity with students. And similarly with families, especially from my perspective at the beginning of the year, I never want the first contact I have with a family to be a behavior challenge at school. I want them to hear something positive from me about their child and what we're doing at school. And I think that remembering to do that when there's so much going on and we're trying to be concise with our language can be a challenge that educators face.
So as we wrap up, we were just reviewing 2023. We're definitely grateful to our guests who took the time out of their schedules to come and speak with us. And we really learned that effective communication is a dynamic force that is transcended across all industries. And it helps us in various challenges and contexts. And it's also something that you saw people can really struggle with as well. So we hope that these discussions have inspired you to reflect on your own communication practices and consider new approaches.
And before we end this summary of our episode wrap up for 2023, we want to hear from you. So please share your favorite takeaways from the series from this past year in the comments below. What topics or industries would you like us to explore in the future for future episodes? Please, please, please keep this conversation going and share your feedback with us. We would love to hear it.
Thank you to our incredible guests, our production team, and most importantly to you, our viewers. Stay tuned for more engaging conversations on the art of communication. Take care.